how much difference does your soldering iron make in the quality of your soldering? Like, how much of it is the soldering iron and how much of it is the skill of the person running it? Until recently, I would have said that as long as your soldering iron is like half decent, not just like a total cheapo hardware store Radio Shack piece of trash, then it's mostly just the skill of the person using it. But I had the opportunity to use a soldering iron recently that changed my mind about that, because this soldering iron was so good, it immediately made me better at soldering. All my joints just got better, and I had to think less and put less effort into getting good results. Apparently, the right soldering iron makes a big freaking difference, but I didn't make a video about it at the time. And here's why. That soldering iron was the JBC CD2BQF, this JBC soldering iron, and it costs $652. So it was so far out of the reach of, well, really anyone, even a well-to-do hobbyist probably isn't going to spend $600 on a soldering iron when a $100 or $200 soldering iron is practically just as good. And I also thought, if I teach people about this soldering iron, it's going to make them so good at soldering that then if someday they don't have a $600 soldering iron, they're going to suck at it and they're not going to know why. That's not really fair. I'm not doing you any favors by telling you about the JBC soldering iron for $600. But I am doing you favors to tell you about this. This is the Sugon T21, and shocker, like everything in the world, the Chinese looked at the JBC soldering iron and went, oh, we could do that. And they made a $100 version of it that's just as good. I'm Joshua Bardwell. You're going to learn something today. Before we look at the Sugon T21, let me just say that there are many different clones of the JBC soldering iron. And the thing that they have in common and the thing that makes them so freaking good is not necessarily the iron itself, but the design of the heating element and the tip of the iron. The secret to the awesome performance of the JBC iron and its copies is in the design of the tip. And one thing that makes the JBC tips distinct is that they have the heating element and the temperature sensor integrated into the tip itself. And that means that the temperature measurements are more accurate because they're being measured from right at the tip instead of further up into the handle of the iron. And the heating is a lot faster. This is one of the things that really impresses me about this iron is how fast it heats up and cools down. And all the iron has to do is pump power into the tip. But there's something more to it. And to be honest with you, I don't know what the secret is, because this is the tip from a TS100, TS101, Secure, Pine Sil, all those little $50 portable soldering irons. And this tip also has the heating element built in, and it doesn't perform as good. Like, it performs better than the soldering irons where the heating element is separate from the tip, but it still doesn't perform as good as the JBCs, and I don't know, but they perform really freaking good. How good do they perform? Let me show you. So right now the iron is sleeping. It has a feature where if you put the handle in the cradle, the iron just goes to sleep. As soon as you take it out, it comes back up to temperature. And I never would have done this with my old Hakko soldering iron because it took 45 seconds to a minute, maybe more, to actually come up to temperature. So every time I set it down, it would be cold. And every time I picked it up, it would just sit there and wait. That's not the case. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Here she goes. Not freaking bad, huh? And that was full sleep. So after like 10 minutes of sitting in the cradle, the iron goes into a deeper sleep mode where it's basically off. If I'm working with it, see here, it's at 325 degrees. If I just put this in, it'll go to sleep. And even when it goes all the way down to like 0 to the dashes, it comes back up to temp much, much faster. So here it has gone to sleep mode and you see immediately it's just back up to 325. Now, some of you are saying, Bardwell, 325 is an awfully low temperature for you to solder at. And it's true. I usually run my iron not quite as hot as it can go, but pretty freaking hot. And I didn't realize that the reason I was doing that was because of the poor thermal performance of my iron. Here's a 12 gauge wire. This is the biggest wire commonly used on drones up to, well, really big ones. I mean, somewhere out there's a drone with a 10 gauge wire, but 12 gauge is about as big as most of the ones I deal with go. Let's just see how it works. There we go. She's taking solder. And there we go. That is a nicely tinned wire. I honestly actually feel like that could have gone a little bit faster. I might turn the temperature up slightly, but 325 has gotten so much done, whereas even for small joints on my old iron, I would run at, 375, 400 even, maybe a little higher than that. If you do need to change temperature on this iron, it is super easy. The iron has buttons on the handle where you can turn the temp down and up manually. And there are 3 presets here, so you can quickly switch between 3 different temperatures. Let's try that again at 380, and let's see if it goes any faster. Oh yeah, oh, it's melting in so easily. It's just melting all the way through. Boom. In and out. I fed a little too much solder there. It's just in and out. That was fantastic. And the advantage of moving fast like that is that the solder doesn't have as much time to creep and wick up the wire. A lot of times when doing a big joint like this, it would take you so long to get it hot and get all that solder in there that it would wick all the way up the wire and you wouldn't be able to bend it. You can see, I mean, it's wicked a little bit, but you can see it hasn't wicked up that wire hardly at all. And the excellent heat delivery and the ability to just get in and out quickly is the reason for that. I think it's really cool that you can look at the screen of the Sugon T21 and it shows how much power it's actually using at any given time. It doesn't just output a constant amount of power or heat, it senses the temperature on the tip start to drop as you touch the thing that you're soldering, and then it pumps more power in to bring that temperature back up, but it only uses enough power to hold that temperature. If the iron's hitting 100%, that means that the thing you're soldering is taking more heat out of the iron than the iron can put in. It's having to run flat out. If the iron is going to less than 100%, that means that, well, I'm actually not sure what it means. I mean, it could mean that the iron is easily keeping the tip at temp. But if you think about it, if you had an oxidized tip or if you had oxide on the surface of the thing you're soldering, then you wouldn't get a lot of heat transfer and the tip would stay hot and not a lot of power would get output either. So it's good. More information is always better though. I love insights into what the tool I'm using is doing. To demonstrate just how good the power delivery of this system is, I'm going to try this 12 gauge joint again with this tiny conical tip. One complaint that I have about these irons is that the included tips that come with them are kind of useless. Like there comes with this tiny little conical tip. It comes with this cutting tip, which I guess you could use that if you want to do cutting and melting. And it comes with another hooked tip that I don't even have it handy because I just can't imagine ever using it. So you're going to buy aftermarket tips. You can buy Chinese clone tips, or you can buy authentic JBC tips. The authentic JBC tips are like $40 a piece, but they're supposed to last longer, although they don't necessarily even perform better. They just last longer, so I guess it's up to you. And in order to buy aftermarket tips, you are going to need to know about the different handles that these irons come with. So this handle is the 245 handle. The 245 handle is the one you want. It's rated for up to 140 watts. And you might be like, well, obviously I want more power. Yeah, you do. But you can get with a proper thermal design, you could get a lot done. The smaller handle is the 210, and it's rated for only up to about 40 watts, which again, you may think, oh, that's not enough. No. The 210 handle, I've done whole builds with a 210 handle, and they work fine. 40 watts is fine, but obviously I want the 245 handle because why not? If you do a lot of micro soldering, you want the 210 handle. It has physically smaller tips that can do much smaller soldering. And there's even one below that. I think it's the 115 handle, which has really tiny tips. Really, FPV is never going to need that. It's for really, really small, fine soldering. So you're going to want to get an iron that is rated for the 245 handle, or you can save a little bit of money by buying an iron that's rated for the 210 handle, and you can still do everything you need to do in FPV. But when you buy the tips, you're going to have to buy the tips based on what handle they're going to go in. I don't know what happens if you put a 245 tip in a 210 handle. Is it like, does it break? The voltage going to the handles is different. So like the tips presumably have a resistance that's designed around the voltage. I don't know, maybe you shouldn't do it. But you can see here that this tip, this is a third-party Chinese tip that I bought. It's labeled C245. That's for a 245 handle, D3.2. This is a chisel, 3.2 millimeter chisel tip. I know that's one of my go-tos. My go-tos for tips are a bevel tip for larger joints where I want a little bit of additional thermal mass. Here is an official JBC tip. This is the 296972, and here's a slightly larger bevel tip, C245 C3, and then a chisel tip. This is the JBC 295896, and here is the Chinese third-party version of it, C245 D3.2. You can pick the exact size that you want, and if you're not sure, then buy the cheap Chinese ones and figure out what size and dimensions you're really wanting. And then if you feel like it, go ahead and buy the official JBC version that will last the longest and give you the best performance. The reason that I've never told you about these soldering irons before has been that JBC is so expensive. I just thought it was out of reach of a typical person. And that's not true once you commit to buying the Chinese copies. The one that I've got, the Sugon T21, I paid about $100 for it. I got it off of AliExpress. There are other ones out there. I'm going to put links in the video descriptions to some that you might consider. There's some that have different pros and cons, like with some of them, the tip isn't grounded. So if you do a lot of work with where electrostatic discharge is a concern, you might want to make sure you get an ESD safe one. Obviously I settled on the Sugon T21 because it is ESD safe. I like the layout. I like the form factor, and I like that it comes with a 245 handle and not just a 210 handle. Some of the others only come with a 210 handle. But you can do your own research, or you can just get the Sugon T21 if you just want to get the same one that I got. I'm also going to put a link to a couple Reddit threads that I used when I was studying up on the pros and cons of these different kinds of irons, and you might want to check those out if you're interested in doing a little more research. But this is my new daily driver. It's so good. It's so good. I feel like I'm spoiling myself. And I was like, I want a JBC, and I couldn't bring myself to spend $600 on it. And I was also like, what's it going to look like if I'm in a video building a drone and I have a $600 soldering iron? I'm like, you guys just solder better, you losers. But now everybody can have a soldering iron this good, and you totally should. But the best soldering iron in the world won't make up for the fact that you don't know how to solder. And many people getting into FPV don't know how to solder, and they want to just charge ahead and build a drone. They don't want to do this, soldering BS, and then they destroy all their equipment. Their drone falls out of the sky, and they're not having a good time. So if that sounds like it might be you, then I've got a soldering tutorial, and you totally need to watch it. It's soldering for FPV. It's the minimum amount of information I think you need to know to get good at soldering. I'm going to put a card on screen and a link in the video description below. And I suggest, frankly, even if you do know how to solder, maybe you could learn something. I'll see you there.